Good evening, everyone. This is Dolores Polite with Windsor of Georgia Inc. on its segment of Community Speaks. We have here this afternoon Ishmael, a dear relative of mine. You know, Ishmael, I must admit on camera, I got to ask my cousin his last name, I forgot.
My last name is Bartley.
That's right, you did. I do remember.
Ishmael Bartley.
Yeah, thank you, Ishmael. But Ishmael and I are here, and we are very instrumental in preserving the African American history in the coastal region of Georgia. I am from Brunswick, Georgia, and Ishmael is from.
My family is from Camden County, Georgia, specifically the Woodbine, Scarlett area.
And you live where?
I live in Southern California.
Okay. And you are here visiting?
I am here visiting my aunties, cousins, extended family.
Like myself.
Yes, ma'am.
We thank you for coming back. But Ishmael, I want to kind of plow into thank you on an earlier invitation, like a year plus ago when we was trying to acquire a donated building from the city of Brunswick. And it was a public benefit building, and we were asking a partnership ask, meaning Windswood will be partnering with the city of Brunswick to host the museum. And I would like to thank you publicly for sending in a letter of support, because a lot of people don't understand this is a passion and it's a love. If you've been doing this type of research for 50 plus years, it's something that you absolutely love. And I'm so excited that Lunita, who I met first at the Hoffa Plantation, when they were rekindling the descendants from slaves at the plantation with our family, meaning your family, my family and your family come from. But to jump into the story of, we are speaking about the Polites, but there's so many other families that we are not mentioning now, and we will mention in the future, but we don't want to negate their family. But we are speaking about the Polite now because Ishmael is part of the Polite family. And Ishmael, I would like to start you in indicating how are you related to the Polite family from the Hoffa Plantation.
Yes, ma'am. We are indeed Polites. My great-grandmother is a Polite. My great-grandfather, Hamilton Monday Sullivan, married a young woman by the name of Virginia Polite. We just discovered their graves out in a place called Jefferson. And prior to the county seat in Camden County being in Woodbine, it was in Jefferson. And there's just a terribly interesting story about that. Don't know if we want to do that now, but a smidgen of that
let's talk
we'll
about
do
it.
we should do a smidgen of it because I'll start it this way. We have a piece of land out there that's near the water, and on that piece of land there is a cemetery. This cemetery has a colored section and a white folks section. The white folks go all the way back to the 1700s. There are two prominent headstones in the colored section. The only two headstones still standing, Hamilton Sullivan and Virginia Sullivan, the former Virginia Polite. Now, there's a book, I believe it's Camden's Challenge. And in Camden's Challenge, there's a description of the Sullivan family. Talks about they were well-mannered, hardworking people that lived out on St. Simon's Island that made a living doing something with cane poles up and down the river. A couple days ago, I was standing out on the river with a gentleman who has done some construction out there, and we were able to see the former some ruins of the ferry crossings that are over 100 years old. And right in front of our land, something I never noticed before, there's a ruin of a ferry docking. So long story short, it seems like our folks not only were doing the work, but they owned
Yes.
some part of that
Tangible.
industry,
Absolutely.
and the remains are still there. And being able to stand there as a part of that community modern day and then talk back about the history was huge. And I'll land the plane by saying my great grandmother, the former Virginia Polite, my grandfather died, in fact, I got it right here. He died 1920-ish or so. Virginia Polite died 1947. Virginia Polite survived as a widow and held that land with like and had 7 or 8 children she continued to raise, held it by herself for 25 years and made sure that she passed it on as an inheritance to us.
So that's the land you're speaking of today.
That is the land I'm speaking of today. And we have to take a piece of thread and weave together those narratives, and because that's what makes it important to us today. That's why we have something and why we are something.
And I'd like to expound on that land part. I know we are here to talk about how we are connected.
Yes, ma'am.
But you are absolutely so right. Right after Reconstruction, it was like, how did my great-grandfather own property just stepping out of slavery? And that was very monumental at that time.
Yes, ma'am.
But they knew, your point taken is that they knew the value of land. And that was one of the, I think, major goals, and to create a legacy that was understood.
Yes, ma'am.
Because they did come from a big old continent called Africa, renamed, and we're still trying to discover the name Abyssinia and all the other names. But finding the Polites and bridging the importance of who we are and the settlements, like the point you made, not only that we were workers, but we had industry. And that's kind of swept under the rug. Like, we was, what you said, that we was kind, what you said, the people described them.
They described us as kind, hardworking, and industrious.
Absolutely. But we didn't have no choice at that time because you had to be kind to survive away from Africa. That's
Absolutely.
one. You was in a foreign country.
Yes, ma'am.
You had to show your craft, and you had to provide for your family.
Sure.
And I think every individual, every culture has that same love and passion when they love their culture, they love themselves. And the earlier settlers, we can't say they was complete settlers because they was captives.
Absolutely.
And in the process of being captive, they said, well, I don't know the way back. I got to do the best that I can do in this country. So the trickle-down effect for the southeast region of Georgia, we are here to tell these stories. And not only, we wasn't just a kind-hearted laborer, we was blacksmiths. We was just read about Samuel Polite from St. Simon Island when he was speaking about the choking of the plow.
Certainly.
And so we was the labor intense of the foundation of America. And so these are the stories that's not told. And we like to tell them because when someone else tell our story, it's like a pie in the sky.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you exist? Oh, this is how it exists. I created this, I created that. Well, how? Because you got all those talented Africans, you brought ownership, and they brought their skill set with them. So, I'm gonna spin back.
Before you spin back.
Yes, okay, thank you.
You talk about when others tell the tale.
Yes.
And they like to put their spin on the tale, and they put their spin on the tale in order to cover up the indescribable amount of injustice.
Right.
In dealing with land and going back and trying to deal with history in land, we have encountered areas of Georgia law like heirs property, and 35, 40 years ago, there was only a handful of lawyers practicing heirs property, and they were Caucasians. And I hear tell, don't know how true this is, I hear tell that when young black folk wanted to practice that kind of law, they darn near got run out of town, tarred and feathered, attacked, threatened, dissuaded or discouraged from practicing that kind of law, because that's where the skeletons are buried.
Absolutely.
That's where you can see
true stories.
the arbitrary, deliberate, well, we just took that
That's
kind
right.
of stuff. Now, the point I wanted to make is they tell the there is a fabricated truth that gets put out as whatever, but the truth always wants to tell itself. And in one particular way, if anybody ever visits the Hawfield Plantation, make sure you stop in the visitor center and you watch the video. Because about 4 minutes into the video, they make a statement. They talk about the planter class, and they try to extol or lift up the virtue of the planter class as being the brilliant, smart people. But then they say something. They say, but coastal Georgia was a place that crushed the planter class. It killed the white man, but the slave thrived, the slave survived. Now that just makes me want to somehow these other folk were able to, it's abominable.
Yes.
They were able to circumvent evolution. They should have died. They had to leave us in charge, because they could not survive in the environment they were exploiting.
Absolutely.
So the truth won't tell itself.
Yes, it will. And I was going to spin off and expound on the land part.
Yes, sir.
Not only you would tar and feather anyone that wanted to practice, what was it? The practice?
Estate law, heirs
Estate law,
property.
heirs property. Let's go with property. Everybody in the world knows property is king. Property is king. And at one time in history, they called this coast, along with all the connecting coasts, the Black Atlantic. Because it was so many Africans here.
Mm-hmm.
Back to your point in saying they had to leave because environmentally they could not deal with the climate.
Mm-hmm.
But the strong African could. So my point is, I understand why they call it at one time in history the Black Atlantic. And so this is why it's so important to tell our ancestor story. I know we indicated slightly about the Sullivan-Polite relationship, and we are still understanding how. Yeah, we're still learning. We are students.
Yes, ma'am.
We are not the scholarly professors
Yes, ma'am.
that have done the research. And the key to research these days is the wonderful DNA.
Come on.
The DNA will tell the story about really who we are and how we are connected. And I know a lot of us, like my grand uncle used to say, give a name. I don't trust this fact of
Give a name.
what
You said give a name.
Yes, my Uncle Bill, my grandfather's brother,
That's right.
that lived to be 99. Uncle William Bill, right up the road on Needwood Road. His daughter is still living. His daughter, Laura B. I think it's short now. Laura B. Polite short. Uncle Bill he'll say, my name is William Polite. And then, just with hesitation, you know how you have that dash?
Yes, ma'am.
Give a name.
Give a name.
Because we don't have our original names. For meaning like
No.
he
Yes,
was
ma'am.
just that concentrated all his life on being an African
Okay.
that was stolen from Africa. Generation. He says 5 to 8 generations been in this area for a very, very long time. And we have already documented the slave ship with the archive research that I have done from the state of Georgia. And you know, I think, I don't know if I can share this with you, Ishmael. Hold for just a second, please, for the audience, excuse me. But I want to share this with my cousin, and it's very interesting even to me. Because when I went to the state of Georgia, this is an article here indicating the Georgia counties date of creation.
Uh-oh.
You know, this is from the Archive Center in the state of Georgia. So I'm gonna turn over just a little bit. But it was very interesting. Always you see Camden County, 1777. But did you just say? You just said it before you knew this, that you got settlers that was way back there from 1700s.
And the crazy thing is, McIntosh, Glenn, Brantley, there's a plantation across the river. And if you look at some of those historical signs, McIntosh and Glenn are named as having been associated with that plantation in the mid 1700s.
This is the region.
It's very accessible.
Yes, it's the colonial region.
Yes, ma'am.
And so when we say region, it's just not the coastal region. It's these counties.
Come on.
And so I'm gonna turn the page over a little bit to give you some more identification on where I'm going. Now, we have the back of the page. It says Georgia Courthouse disaster.
All the records burnt up.
Wait, let me just keep my composure because I will lose
Yes,
my
ma'am.
mind. I will
Yes,
lose
ma'am.
They'll bring in Ishmael. You got to go back to Riverside, right?
Yes, ma'am. Just conveniently.
Okay. But what's very interesting, now I have been to the Historical Archive Center there in Georgia like for about 3 to 4 years consistently because I know a lot of the documents is not here. They don't want it to be here. They don't want you to
not.
find.
Absolutely not.
So this great archivist that I spoke with at the Archive Center here in the state of Georgia, out of Atlanta, Jonesboro, I asked this question. I said, why is it that there are marks on certain counties? And so he says, I see the courthouse, what that last word says?
Disasters.
Yes. So I said, why was it disasters,
Lord.
right? And so he said, what they said, I want to read what they indicated here. No records lost or records lost evidence. So it indicated, I'm going to read a notation here from the state of Georgia, it's their documents, you can go pick it up today, but I'm going to read it for the audience. It says, the dates listed represents instances where county courthouses were impacted by a disaster, right? Either man-made or natural.
Man-made.
You better leave me alone. My point is, they're erasing history. And this is what? Why?
And have been for quite some time.
Well, ever since we left the continent. Because we don't have our original names or know what tribe we come from. So this is an unknown level of like in your face, I'm gonna erase you out of society. Just like even in media, you can hear about Asia, you can hear about Russia, you can hear about Europe, you can hear about Papua New Guinea. But they eliminate the continent of Africa and they have already extracted all the minerals. One of the biggest diamonds in the world is in one of these jewelry places we would not name. But rightfully so, it's owed to the continent. And the reason why I am so passionate is that my ancestors' labor, back to your point earlier about their labor, they created and they tried to eliminate. Like you lazy. Are you serious? We lazy. We survived that mid-Atlantic voyage for 3 weeks. Some jumping off the ship.
Come on.
Because they couldn't take it no more.
Come on.
Because it was absolutely inhumane.
Horrific. Yes, ma'am.
How could you do another human being? And they're trying to justify, you're going to take Darwin's theory about the justify who I am, and we were 10,000 years here on this world before anyone.
Yes, ma'am.
So, okay, we can say, yes, we are still trying to find the polites, and also give a name Murray. Because we were, yes, I'm telling you. See, I really thank God that I like being around the elders, because that oral history is phenomenal. Uncle Bill, which is my grandfather Henry's brother, one of the youngest brothers, but Henry was younger, but Uncle Bill outlived my grandfather. Excuse me, please. You hear the stories, and they tell you, and you got to believe it, because he says somebody else or reinterpret the story that's not true.
Dolores, I need to jump up and down or do a backflip or something. Number one, to agree with you. When I come to Camden, when I come to Georgia, I am doing the things that my granddaddy taught me when I was 3, 4 or 5. I fish every little mud hole that I saw him fish.
I saw the fish.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
2:44 in the morning.
But that my granddaddy and his brothers was down there with me last night, and that's something totally different. But number one, the land that's down there is surrounded by the Murray land. Now, what you say is that your surname.
Before they changed it.
Yeah, they tell you that you come from Murrays.
Yes.
But my granddaddy, first of all, the Murray family owns land from the river about 10 miles to the east to the highway. That is what they are, one of the largest landowners still today. And as I've been riding around out there, I have been marveling at the amount of land they still possess. So if y'all were Murrays at one point, so the older folk tell you, and my grandmother ended up out there married to a Sullivan, that's just real interesting. And then the fact that my granddaddy, so his daddy would have come over here and found a woman, and then when my granddaddy needed a wife, he came over here, and his first wife was a Mungeon from right around the corner.
That's right.
So there's just so much.
It is, and this is why Servant and I will really work on this. This is life work.
Yes, ma'am.
And because if it wasn't for Bonita inviting me to her brother's homegoing, the family from Cabin County is just 40 miles away?
Yes, ma'am. Right up the road.
Just 40 miles away. We wouldn't have never known that they've been looking for us. We wouldn't have never known. And when they met us for the first time at a homegoing, I'm talking about, this is probably the second or third generation, probably had the story from their grandparents.
Yes, ma'am.
And they said, we have been looking for y'all. And you all are here, but we were right here in Brunswick. And so it was absolutely phenomenal that we are still looking for each other. And this is gonna be a life work, because back to my point, and you just you just brought some new information to the platform when you said the Murrays. No, please. And so
good things happen when we talk.
yes, but when you are recording, we want to make sure we document it and it's very clear. And so I'm just astonished on your point that you did not know. I was just speaking about Samuel. You did not know that he was from, did you know he was from St. Simon?
I did not.
Okay.
I didn't.
And then I just left the museum in South Carolina where my dear friend Clara Benz went there. She said, well, she called me Janice, my middle name. She said, Janice, do you know Sam Polite is in the Gullah history there at the museum from Sapelo Island?
Come on.
I said, well, it's
from Sapelo.
Yes, no, it's regional.
Yes, ma'am.
This is right. Okay.
Yeah.
This is why I don't get locked into a geographical area, because when you hear the ancestors that's already gone and they tell the story about, well, he was having trouble with this one, or he worked so well with this planter and that planter to make his harvest plenty, then you will understand why, back to speaking about labor and industrialists, that he was at Sapelo, he was in Carolina, he was in Bryan County, he was in Cabinet County.
Because they moved workers all over the place.
Because the war, it was shipping. It was the boat.
Okay.
We didn't have modern transportation.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
We did not have modern transportation. So you know they went like in a previous recording, we had my dear cousin Sammy Pinckney from Darien, which is his grandmother was a polite, but like Virginia.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
He says we didn't have transportation. When we went where we had to go, we walked, or it was horse and buggy. And it took us 2 or 3 days to get back.
Wow.
So along the way,
Stay different places.
absolutely.
Come on.
And then you created families as you go. But see, that's the reason one segment of a presentation that I will have to do is a product of scatter. A product of scatter. Because you cannot keep a family neutral and solid when you put these people in that type of condition. This is going to be inevitable that you're going to have a breakout of some type. And so today they're going to want to understand why, which I do not go along with it. I don't embrace the language. The rappers talk about speaking in regard to what they call females, and the depiction of our culture is not a welcome embracing, because we are, our ancestors are better than that.
Yes, ma'am.
And so the Gullah stuff will come out. I gotta let it roll. But my point is, we need to start telling our story and changing that narrative, whether it's in lyrics, whether it's in books, whether it's in research, that we are important to the world.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And I know we are speaking about the coastal region of Georgia, and they have transplanted our ancestors all over this world.
But the Gullah narrative is isolated primarily to little space around the South Carolina coast, and that is what the media and other folk like to focus on. But I'm Gullah. I'm a Gullah Geechee. I don't talk to people that don't know nothing about okra.
Well, but the point, see, okay, you my cousin, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to get that out there because you gotta show that love first.
Yes, ma'am.
Back to giving it. Back to the planters and his transitioning us all over the world.
Was he saying that's the name I was given and leaving a question mark there?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes,
See,
ma'am.
I know we related.
Yes, ma'am.
I know we related because we on this side of the continent are so far removed that we do not know how to relate unless you're speaking to traditional people.
Amen.
And Gullah, when I first started doing this research, in depthness, I was about 16 or 17. And I got a pamphlet from the Chamber of Commerce. It was a purple pamphlet. And it indicated that we was from Gizi, a location, Kizi, a location in Nigeria, and Angola was from, the word Gullah was from Angola. And see, based on, they have this thing they call Webster's Dictionary.
Come
on. Stop it. Okay, I gotta calm myself down. You still have an interpretation that's not true. Even if you remember the words if you remember the segment in Roots, where they had an interpreter there, and everything he was saying was not true, and they highlighted that there because you have to speak to the traditional people. So my point I'm trying to make, not that it is, I'm trying to make is that when the people coming off the ship, they said, I'm from Angola. I am from Angola. He was really trying to say he was from Angola and not that he was Gullah that they was listening to. Because it's rap, absolutely. And so this pamphlet that I had, back there in the early 70s that indicated the actual country. I had to pull it out because I've been doing this for so long. The actual country they came from. And the two that I remembered very vividly was Kizzy, meaning like it looks like Geechee, and Angola.
Sure.
So okay, I'm gonna use this word, forgive me, my ancestors. We've been hypnotized about Gullah and Geechee. And they have made it a market.
Oh, absolutely.
So I am still, how should I say it? I am still on the brand of giving. Like my Uncle Bill, 99 years old, said, my name William Polite. Give a name. So everything that we have over here, it is a basis of levels of authenticity, true. But at the level of authenticity, you have to, you have to speak to Ivan Van Sertima. You have to speak to Lorenzo Turner.
Sure.
Chancellor Reed.
Yes, ma'am.
Runoko Rashidi.
Yeah.
All the historians that, like traditional academic, UCLA, Berkeley, New York College, or what, some type, they have the original stuff, and then rewrite it for their interests. And we have to say it because it's the truth. Until we understand and roll back that level of culture to the land, we will really never know our place in history.
It's difficult simply because there is a measure of guilt that we as a people, black folk in America, have taken on that we should not. And I say that because there is some bad behavior floating around our community. I would look past that, and I'm just going to give a couple of brief examples as to why. And these brief examples speak to what we are working against and what we have been working against. The young lady who works with Dr. Collins told me that when she does history, some of the hardest history for her to track down is black folks who are quote unquote free between late 1700s and 1865. If you were free, you had to have a Caucasian person to stand for you. And if that person wasn't honest, when they got in front, if you tried to take them, to sue them to get your property, it would be what mule, what piece of land. In the modern sense, when I go to look at records, there are no controls around the records. I was in the property vaults at the county courthouse yesterday. You can go in there, you could take out, there's no cameras, you could take out whatever you want to take out, put in whatever you want to put in. Over in the archives, you can go into any family's folder, take out what you want to take out, put in what you want to put in. And last but not least, somebody was telling me about 2 days ago that there was a time in these counties around here when if someone was behind on their property taxes, namely a colored person, all you had to do was go to the courthouse and pay those taxes, and that would become your land. So things like that.
Well, Ishmael, I'm gonna be really honest with myself first, and then I'll share it with you. It's not our system.
Very true.
Why? We are victims. We are captives. We are victims, and we are survivors. So, I hear you in the level of trying to humanly understand a process that's not going to be fair to African people. Because for one, they took us from animals. I'm not guilty. Let me back up on that part. It's a whole lot of guilt that I don't have to worry about because my family, when I almost was played in colonial time, but my ancestors were victims. So
Period.
that's right. Thank you for the period.
Period.
So when you try to indoctrinate a process of processes to a system that's not fair to us in the beginning, you can't justify a period until you are strong enough, because you'll have another Oklahoma or Patrice Lumumba, a guy in Haiti. What was his name?
Which one? Toussaint? Or-
Yes, and all the others. Even let's go even recent to Michael Jackson and Prince.
Yes, ma'am.
When it Tupac. You know, we can go from back then to now.
Sure.
It is the truth about the evidence that they bestowed on us. And so the evidence is that, one, I don't have my land. I don't have my language. I don't have my food.
Yes, ma'am.
So those are the things that really structure a culture, really. And we can speak about the over the sea and away from Africa part, but until you embrace yourself, and this is the thing that I really appreciate about my grand uncle, and it kind of shook me when you said give a name. I was the same way. Like, what do you mean? Because he did not buy into the system.
Whatever name they gave me.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
in our process and research, we are more importantly trying to come together and build a dialogue. Like you indicated, it's so hard. Yes, it's fragmented, but we are going to do it.
Absolutely.
Because we owe our ancestors that long journey,
Come
and
on.
we still here today. And you try to justify current documentation that we know they can blot it out, or they can put a bullet in your head,
All of the above.
or they can burn you down like in Oklahoma.
Mhm.
So these are the fabrications that our ancestors had to deal with, of trying to survive. And so I know we wanted to really, I think we did justify how we are related. Your great grandmother.
My great grandmother is a
is
polite. Period.
I know I'm a polite.
Mhm.
So, I don't know what the DNA would tell, but the goal of our mission at Community Speak Session, with Windsor of Georgia Community Speak Session, is to tell our story. No, I must admit, you said this word earlier, it's difficult. It's gonna be difficult because you're away from home. Until you go home, it's gonna be right. And this word guilt, I could never feel guilty knowing that they made away from me. Now, you'll get into the politics about East Coast, West Coast, North or South, light or dark, speaking Gullah, being country, I speak the Queen, what all the ever that's in the melting pot. I tell you what, if you make it more important, if you got that one drop rule,
Come on.
you better leave me alone. That's the they'll be trying to throw at me, Ishmael, because that drug, if they already put in law, however, that you not look like an African, if they know you got that one drop rule,
Yes, ma'am.
that tells you your power. And that's my focus. One, my grand uncle say, William Polite, give a name. Boy, that's power. Give a name, Uncle Bill, what you mean? That's one thing. Two things. That one drop rule, now they made a law out of that.
Yes, ma'am.
That was phenomenal.
Yes, ma'am.
So subconsciously, I don't even know if they knew this, but you really are telling us how powerful we are if you're talking about one drop. You know a glass is an 8-ounce glass,
Yes, ma'am.
and you put one drop and you more powerful than all the other volume that's in the side of the glass?
Yes, ma'am.
Come on. Okay, Darwin, sit down. That's science.
Yes, ma'am.
That's subconscious signs that you know yourself that we are someone, even though it took you generations and generations, and still digging up our history today. They found some Roman swords over there in Egypt. And why? Why would you want to expound about the graveyards? I want to thank you for that, because you know that's another segment of Windsward that we are just embracing with the state of Georgia after 50 years of cleaning our graveyards. That they was the host of the graveyards, and they would protect white culture, would protect black culture. So, it's the same picture. It's the same picture. So my point is, the graveyards is very sentimental to me too, because their presence and their resting place. If you disrespect the graveyard, that really tells me who you are.
Come on.
Who you are. And so, now if you burn down a whole town in Oklahoma, that tells me who you are. If you disenfranchise the people from acquiring economic wealth to feed themselves, back to your point about land, that tells me who you are. So these are the working points that Africans away from Africa have to deal with. They can get lost in this system talking about nonsense. But what I'm gonna exit on this. Our family, meaning given name Polites, Murrays, or whoever they were, they left a significant mark in this region and really around the world about survival, about legacy, and labor. And anything else, Ishmael, you wanted to speak on, because I know I can get so ingrained in talking about our ancestors. I really want to hear from you, especially more so from you than me, because you are here temporarily from Riverside, California. And anything else you would like to say in regards to our ancestors?
I'm going to say two things really, really quick. Number one, you talk about cemeteries, and I told you I went over there to Petersville Road, and Petersville Road was a polite, over there by the Boys Estate. Lots over there. When I was on Petersville Road, I wanted to take my shoes off because the ancestral pull was thick. So when you do that episode, I hope I can be sitting in one of these pews or tuning in for that, because that's going to be very rich. And the second thing is,
thank you.
My great grandmother, Virginia Sullivan, formerly Polite, is responsible for whatever piece of land that we still have today. She held, after her husband died, she held on to that, continued to raise and support her family, and she's the reason why we still have that. And my auntie Lunita brought that up. That's why it's important, because that woman, all by herself,
that's right,
held that together.
And let's now you talk about, we were supposed to have 1 or 2 points, right? But you made an excellent point about all by herself. I have a couple of dolls around here in the church that how they fragmented the family, and some industries or some lifespans do not understand the importance of a black female. She is a survivor.
Come on.
She is an absolute survivor. And so I would like to commend my aunt Virginia, my grand aunt Virginia.
Grand aunt Virginia, yes.
Because that's why I'm able to stand myself, which I am a mother of 4. And they made it very clear, you got to stand when it's not comfortable.
Well.
And they knew how to stand.
Yes.
They stood proudly and they loved their culture. And that's the reason why I wasn't raised out here in Neatwood. I used to visit Neatwood because this is where my grand-uncle them and my grandpa them was from. Because I was raised in the city of Brunswick, which is just 15, 20 minutes away.
Right down the street.
But you know, every weekend, my dad them dropped us off, every other weekend. But the most important thing, it was home to us. it was our foundation.
Yes, ma'am.
And coming through Charleston, all along the corridor of the Atlantic,
Well,
we are showing our ancestors that we appreciate them. And we go, Community Speaks will close out today, but before I close out, I want to thank Ishmael so much for texting me, because all those numbers don't always transfer.
yes, ma'am.
And I didn't know that 951 number,
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
you.
Yes, ma'am.
I said, I don't know that number, I'm not answering it, because you know the telemarketers.
Mhm.
All this in the world today. And I want to also thank my cameraman,
Amen.
servant
Amen.
Emmanuel.
Yes,
He's
yes,
awesome. And we go close out today, and I want to say Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.